Hello everyone! I reached Legend in Ultra League now in Season 8 and I did it with Umbreon, Suicune and Blissey to cross out Reach Legend with timeout strats from my bucket list, and if you want a serious team that you can reach Legend with, then Toxicroak, Armored Mewtwo and Politoad is the team that I climbed 250 ELO in 2 days in Ultra League Remix to put me at 2995 ELO before this set. Anyways, I love the timeout strat because it's so unique and comparably complex to play, and in this meta with a bunch of XLs, it is a legit strategy that you can climb with. Anyways, let's have a look at the battles. First opponent in this set is Wonky Coma, and he leads with Melmetal and then sends in a Meganium immediately. So the plan right here is to KO one of my opponent's Pokemon without any of my Pokemon being KO'd, cause then after 270 seconds we reach timeout, so the game ends and whoever has the most surviving Pokemon will win the game. So even if all of my Pokemon go down to 10% HP and my opponent has 2 completely healthy Pokemon, then I will still win, and that's the plan. So I will stay in, cause this is my best matchup against Meganium, and then I will use both my shields if necessary to win this, and if my opponent matches the shield, they will actually win this matchup, so then I will have to switch out before my Umbreon is KO'd, cause if my Umbreon goes down, then it's completely over. So here my opponent reaches another Frenzy Plant, and I will shield of course, and then I really hope that my opponent takes the shield advantage instead of taking the switch advantage, because I'm going to give up the switch advantage either way here, because of course my Umbreon cannot be KO'd, so I was planning to switch into Suicune either way. And then my opponent has a Cresselia, and this Cresselia does have Future Sight, which is slightly better than Grass Knot. I would still survive 2 Grass Knot without the problem with Suicune with all of these debuffs, but it's even better with a Future Sight Cresselia. So at this point I'm just trying to survive and stall out the game as much as possible. Now the Future Sights are triple debuffed and they don't deal much damage, so I'm going to switch into Blissey and bank a Hydro Pump if I need it, but I'm likely not going to need it. But the good thing with Melmetal as well, compared to Registeel, is that each of the superpowers will debuff the Melmetal, so they deal less and less damage, so I have absolutely no problem surviving 3 superpowers, compared to Registeel that can beat Blissey with just 3 Focus Blasts. And then I'm going to catch the last superpower with my Suicune, which is nowhere close to KOing me with 3 debuffs already. And then I also did my Bubble Beam to waste some more time, and then we reach timeout and I win. Moving on to game number 2 of the set against Dr. Dre, and he leads with an Alola Ninetales, which is terrible for this team, but at least it has Powder Snow instead, so it's very spammy, which might waste a lot of time in the end of the game, so that I can still reach timeout. But at the beginning I was forced to go into Suicune, and my opponent counter-switched into the Jellicent. So this puts me in a much better spot than in the beginning, because Suicune will be able to take this Jellicent on, and I was able to connect with 3 Bubble Beams before the first Shadow Ball connects, just by shielding the first one. So at this point my opponent has a super debuffed Jellicent, so he's not likely to shield it, and therefore I will try to go for the Hydro Pumps, but then because of this lag I'm not able to reach the next charge move before my opponent. So instead I decide to shield and farm down all the way with Snarls. And then my opponent's last Pokemon is a Politoad, so I will start by debuffing it and then try to catch a Weather Ball, but my opponent did not throw, and the reason I went into Umbreon is that I need to get some value of the Umbreon at some point in the game. If my opponent ran Psyshock instead, then that would be super good, but they had Dazzling Gleam, so here if my opponent goes for another Dazzling Gleam, I straight up lose the game. But I'm very lucky that they haven't really realized what I'm doing yet. They want to farm down with fast moves, but I'm not going to give them the chance. And here somewhere my opponent likely realized, oh no, he's going to time me out. So I'm very happy to receive all of these Weather Balls, because that just wastes time and almost doesn't even tickle the Blissey, and my opponent goes for Earthquake instead of Weather Balls here. But now at this point it's too late. He wasted way too much time and didn't go for the Dazzling Gleam when he should. So at this point I will just survive with Blissey and win the game. Moving on to game 3 against Brian Flores, and he leads with a Charm Gramble, which is possibly the worst lead you can ever face with this team, because firstly it destroys Umbreon, and secondly it's very glassy, so we're less likely to reach timeout, and thirdly it's not going to throw many charge moves because of the slow energy generation from Charm. So I'm in a very bad spot from the beginning, but at least my opponent had a fairly bad answer to Suicune. So after some debuffs, I'm going to be able to defeat this Swampert with a Hydro Pump. So at least I can reach the first objective to KO one of my opponent's Pokemon. But then this will be really hard for me to survive as long as I need to. So I go into Blissey, and hopefully they have something bad against Blissey in the back, like a Giratina, but my opponent had a Registeel. So at this point, it's very unlikely for me to win the game. I will have to shield the third Focus Blast from my opponent's Registeel, and you see here I'm not even bothering to hit the bubbles, because I'm not going to KO any of my opponent's 2 remaining Pokemon. So I'm forced to shield this, because if this go down, I will lose, and then go for a Psychic, and then I will switch into my Umbreon, and hopefully just survive until the timer is done. But it's still just around 1 minute left, and there is no way I can ever reach the timeout. So when the Umbreon goes down, I just resign the game. Next up is Hyominule in game number 4 of the set, and she leads with a Swampert. So this is actually a good matchup, even though PvPoke says that Swampert has the edge here. If I shield an Earthquake, or if my opponent does not double shield like I intend to do, then Umbreon still wins this. So that was good, but my opponent caught a foul play onto the Aromatisse, and when they switch out of a neutral matchup into a hard counter matchup, then they for sure have another hard counter to Umbreon in the back. So I expect another Charmer, but in best case scenario there is a fighter like Obstagoon in the back, and that would be much better, because then Umbreon can survive for a minute and reach the switch timer against it. So the Swampert comes back in, and I shield the Hydro Cannon and charge up to a Bubble Beam and catch the next Hydro Cannon on my Umbreon, and then my opponent reveals that they have another Charmer in the back. So here comes the Clefable, and at this point, if my opponent plays decently well, I have lost this, for sure. But I'm not going to be able to reach the switch timer, so Umbreon will be KO'd by these Charms, and then my only chance is to farm down, or if my opponent does not shield one of the charge moves, but of course they are going to shield when they have 2, and I don't really have any threat left. So my only chance is to KO one of my opponent's Pokemon again, so that I have 2 surviving and my opponent doesn't only have 1. But it's not going to happen, and I'm going to lose this game for sure. I have no shields left, and the Swampert that still has a ton of health comes back in and KO me, and I resign. And in the last game I go up against Mishkin, and at this point I have 2 wins and 2 losses in the set, and I'm only 5 points away from Legend. So if I win this, I reach Legend, so it basically all comes down to this one game. I shield the first charge move, because some people like to throw the Earthquake on the first charge move, because the most efficient way to take down an Umbreon is to connect with 2 Hydro Cannons and 1 Earthquake. So some people like to throw the Earthquake in the beginning, but not everyone, of course. I'm of course going to stay in and try to take down this Swampert, and I will use my last shield if needed, but my opponent empties his energy here, so I know it's just another Hydro Cannon, and they are not going to be able to farm me down with Mud Shots before I reach at least 2 more foul plays. So hopefully they let me have the switch advantage, but I'm going to give up the switch advantage immediately, and they have a Lapras and a Giratina Origin Form in the back. So at this point I know I will be able to time out them, because we have already wasted a ton of time in the charge move spam with the Umbreon versus Swampert, and then they have 2 tanks in the back, so they are not going to be able to take down either of my Suicune or my Blissey. So here the Giratina spams up Dragon Claws, and I'm going for 1 more Bubble Beam, and then I will farm up a ton of energy to have to maybe use later in the game, just to stall out the little extra in the end. But I intend to go into Blissey, but my opponent reached the charge move 1 fast move before I expected him to, but that doesn't really matter, I still had my shield. So now I have 2 Bubble Beams in the back, and my Blissey has enough health to be able to cruise out this game. So there the ending timer has appeared, and my opponent is not even close to reaching another Skull Bash. So that's it for this video, where I reached Legend in Season 8 in Go Battle League with the timeout strat. And if you want to see more of the timeout strat, I've done a whole bunch of videos, and I've also been featured by HomeSliceHenry and Shrady and Kieng. So I have some links to them in the description, and thanks for watching!